Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I hope you're all doing well. Okay, today would be I today would be one of those days where I will end the class about 15-20 minutes early, and I will cover whatever time I leave. I'll cover up on Tuesday. I need to go somewhere, so that's the reason. I've been postponing an important thing. So uh, from the last time, does anyone has any questions as to what we were doing? So I will start from the point where I left last time. And I just want to make sure that in about a minute, now you should be able to see my Excel screen.
We do.
Okay. Now, last time what we did was we did computation of the computation of the overhead rates. So depending upon what the base was, we said it could be $2.40 per bread and bowl, or $1.40 per item, or $5.37 per customer. Depending upon what overhead rate we chose, the cost would change, obviously. So when we actually allocated the predetermined overhead rate times the actual level of activity, this is basically what we called was the allocated overheads, right? So in that, it was as simple as the 20,000 bread and bowl, 20 cents is the overhead rate, and so on. Gives you $4,000 of the allocated overhead. So I'm going to do one or two more examples of overhead allocation first, and then I will move further. I just want to make sure that there are no questions which you have, so that I can move further without any problems. So any questions from that last class in terms of allocating overhead? What is an overhead? What is an overhead rate? And how do you compute overhead rate? Yes, please. Anything you would like to ask? I'm giving you the opportunity to ask. Let me give you another example. Can you see the screen which says applying overhead?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So over here, this is another example. At the beginning of a year, we are predicting the overheads to be, or budgeted overheads are 690,900. That means that 6,690,900. It applies overhead based upon the machine hours. That means the machine hours is the basis in this case. Like instead of number of items or number of customer, machine hours is the basis of allocation. The overheads, the machine hours estimated during the years is 1470. So we will be using 1470 machine hours during the year. So we had 619,900 and 1470 is the number of machine hours. So the overhead rate is $470 per machine hour. So instead of BBS or per item, it just gives you the per machine hour, per labor hour, or any of that. Basically, in this case, what we are saying is these overheads are varying more with the machine hours being used. Does everyone understand this $470 per machine hour, please?
Yeah.
And when we do our homework, will we be given what basis to use? Like what, like
Yes,
this one says
this is
now?
from your homework. This is problem number 3 from your homework.
Okay.
Unless and until you have to start using a regression analysis, which will come in the next, in future chapters, you will be given that. For this chapter purposes, yes, you will be given that. Let me say it this way. Otherwise, you'll be given the information to find it out.
Okay.
So is everyone clear on this $470 per machine hour, please?
Yes.
Yep.
Pardon me?
Yes.
Okay, so suppose there are many jobs which are run in this company. One of the job is 65A, which uses 20 machine hours. That basically means if I have to apply machine hours or overhead to this job, 65A, I've got $20, 20 machine hours, which is the actual level of activity. In our case earlier, it was 20,000 PB bread and bowl. At the rate of $470 per machine hour, giving you a $9,400 for this particular job of applied overheads. Does everyone understand this, please?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Now here is another example, same thing. At the beginning of a year, direct material cost is 1,900,000. Total overhead cost is 1,300,000. If the company uses direct material cost in this case, notice it uses direct material cost as its base. So your base is the direct material cost, which is 10900, and your overhead is 1,300,000. So your 1,300,000 divided by your estimated level of activity or budgeted level of activity at 1,990,000. In this case, since both the numbers are in dollars, your overhead rate is in a percentage. So in this case, your overhead rate is in percentage. So 119%. So what does that mean? It basically means, suppose your direct material cost is 100. Suppose your direct material cost is 100. That means your overhead will be at 1.19, right? So suppose your direct material cost is 100. That means suppose your direct labor cost is 200 and your applied overhead will then be 100 times 1.9 because that's the rate, 119% of the overhead cost. It'll be
Is this
$119.
chapter 14 or chapter 15 that we're going over right now?
Chapter 15,
Okay, okay,
job order costing.
okay.
So does everyone understand this, please? Your overhead rate was 119% of the direct material cost. Okay. Now, if you add it all together, we give you 419, right? So this might be the cost of a job, say whatever, job X. Is everyone good with that, please?
Yeah.
So depending upon the overhead base, your overhead, applied overhead cost will change. I just want to make sure you understand this part very clearly because you'll be using this again and again, and I don't want you to have any doubts about it.
So, do we get the rate from the estimated overhead divided by the estimated level of activity?
Yes, the formula remains same. The base will always be in the denominator. In this case, since it's in dollar itself, it is not machine hour like in the previous case. It was number of machine hours. So it was $470 per machine hour. But in this case, it is dollar over dollar, not dollar over units or dollar over. So that's what it is. It's just 119%, means this number is 119% of this number. That's all it is.
Okay, so like when we do what's on the Excel sheet, are we just using like this rate for like everything on the problem?
For this problem, yes. For this example, yes. But different problems will have different bases.
Right. So I guess the question I'm trying to ask is like, are we using what's on the Excel sheet as like an example of what was on the homework problem? Or are we just using this as an example?
Yeah, everything is related. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'll show you more. I just need to make sure today in next half an hour that you understand this. That's it. So make sure to ask your questions. Please don't hesitate. Like you're asking, I'm very encouraged by that you're asking the questions. So I'll show you another example. This is problem number 5, chapter 15 from your homework. So can you all see this, please?
Yes, we can.
Okay, at any point of time you're not able to see it, you have to let me know that. Okay. So just to mention it, now we are doing job order costing. What is job order costing? It is basically one of the methods of costing a product or a service or whatever that you are offering. 2, it is used for specialized job. For example, if Disney wants to get a custom ship made for them, it's a customized job. So generally when the job is customized, it is, you need to use job order costing because you will be using different material, different labor, etc. for each of those. As opposed to, say, here is a stapler I found on my table. This is a, I don't know which company, it doesn't say it, but whatever company it is, suppose Swingline, then what I buy from Walmart and what you buy from Walmart, you're getting the same thing. Or for example, I'm just picking up random things. Here is a marker. If I buy this from Walmart and you buy it from the Walmart, it is basically the same thing you're getting. Or when you buy gas, I get the same gas as you get it, like it's 87 octane, blah, 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 right? So, but if it is a custom thing, like for example, our computer lab at Eberly, you need 50 chairs, 50 desks, and whatever the media system that you need. That's a custom job. That's a job order costing. So job order costing basically uses for the custom job itself. The one where you have got all the products are similar or same basically, that's called the process order costing. That will be next. Okay. So in a job order costing, there are just 3 items: direct material, direct labor, and applied overhead. That gives you the cost of the job. That's it. Okay. So remember that direct material, direct labor, and applied overhead. That's it. These 2 numbers will be directly given to you. You just have to find out this number. So here is on March 1. On March 1, they have got 3 custom designed wedding dresses. So now this is a custom design. So you're basically going to use, obviously, if you're doing the wedding dresses, it has to be designed as per the person wearing it, right? The company uses job order costing and applies overhead at the rate of 45% of the direct material cost. So what they're saying is that our overheads for this dressmaker is equivalent of 45% of the cost, direct material cost that is being incurred. Does everyone understand this part? So direct material used for job 1 is 6,900. Okay. So what will be the overhead applied for job 1?
The direct material used for job 1 times 45%.
Yeah, so 6,900 times 45%. For job 2,
It would be the same, multiply that by 45%.
so 8,900 times 45%. Job 3,
It would again be the same thing.
Same thing. So does everyone understand this applied overheads part, please?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when we combine these direct material for a job, direct labor for a job, and applied overhead for a job together at one place, this is called the job cost sheet. Okay. So let's go to the next problem. March 1, same thing, custom dresses, 3 dresses are there. Job applied overhead at the rate of 48% of the direct material cost. Instead of 45%, it's 48%, that's all. That's what I'm trying to tell you, that once you understand the concept, it is just a repetition. But if you try to memorize these things, it's never going to work. So you've got 3 jobs, direct material used, right? So can you find the applied overhead on this? What will be the applied overhead for job 1?
$3,120.
That is 6,500 times 48%, right?
Yes.
What about this one?
$4,080.
$4,080. Very good. And for 3,000?
Yes. Okay.
$1,440.
1,440 over here. So now you already know direct material. You know what the overheads are, and direct labor is given to you, right? And you know how to add them together. Questions? Okay. Does everyone understand this part, please? Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions, please? Okay. So next is, it tells you jobs 1 and 3 are not finished, right? By the end of March. What does that mean? It basically means the jobs have not been finished. That means it's in work in process. Job 2 is finished but not sold. So it is finished but not sold. That means it is in a finished goods inventory, right? By the end of March. So the question number 2, determine the total amount of work in process inventory and at the end of March. We already answered that question. That is the sum of the total cost on the job cost sheet for the jobs that remain unfinished, job 1 and job 3. Right? We already did that. 20,000 plus 80. That's it. That's what it's asking you. Then it tells you finished goods inventory. We know that job 2 has been finished but not sold. So job 2, which was finished, that will be in the finished goods inventory, which we already computed here. So this one is completed but not sold. These 2 are incomplete. Questions? When you apply the overhead, it is based upon certain estimates. So generally speaking, your applied overheads will be different than the actual overheads when incurred. You will only know about the actual overheads when the jobs are finished and everything is done. But you might have to provide the estimate to the customer before you start the job. So that's why we use that applied overhead, which is based upon our previous history of spending or expenses. So in this case, your applied overhead is say 119,000. I just picked up this number. Suppose your actual overheads are 130,000. Okay. That means applied overhead is more than the actual overhead by $11, right? And as I told you, accountants are very, very creative people. So if applied overhead is more than actual, we will call it over, right? So we'll call it over applied overheads because we applied more than the so if applied overhead was say less, it will be called what?
Under applied?
Yes, see, you got it. So if it is less, it will be called under applied overheads. And income statement, you know, is will always be charged with the actual overhead. And we'll make adjusting entry for the difference. Okay. Because in the income statement, you will only charge when you have incurred it, and it will be based upon actual. Is anyone not clear about, is there any question on the definition of under and over applied overhead?
Yeah, I had a question. I don't know if I just missed something, but I don't understand why 119 is more than 130.
Thank you very much. You are right. My mistake. No one caught this.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
119 is less than 130. So this will be called under, and if it is more, it will be called over applied. You should have shouted earlier.
I wanted to say something, but I thought I was missing something.
No, it cannot be. It's like the good thing about accounting is it's either right or wrong. But you will notice that I will now never deviate from the concept. I can do a problem wrong. There could be an error in on the exam, etc., etc. But I will never deviate from the basic concept. If you ever find an error in the exam, make sure you let me know. I'll give you the credit for it. I do not means it's not possible that there will be no error all the time. Means I try my best not to have the error, but it happens. Okay, Thank you. What else? So here is a situation. Company applies overhead at the rate of 160% of the direct labor cost. Actual overhead incurred is 950,000. Direct labor cost is 555. So you know what is the applied overhead? 555,000 times.
160%.
Yeah, so 160% of 555 or 555 multiplied by 1.6 will give you 888. So in this case, your applied overhead is 888.
So it'd be under applied.
It will be under applied because applied overheads are, I don't know why they wrote down both the things. Okay, so this is the actual, this is the applied overhead, and this is the under applied overhead for the T account. So they have prepared the T account. I'm afraid to connect the tablet because it throws the things off. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write it on a piece of paper and just show it on the camera. Okay. Yes, I can do it with a tablet, but it sometimes just messes up the things. So I'm just preparing an actual overhead account. Means I'm assuming you remember how to make T accounts. I'm just making a T account. That's all I'm doing. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, so you should be seeing a paper which says actual overhead T account. So obviously it's an expense account. So when it is debited, it is the whenever it is the actual, it is debited. Applied is on the credit side. So your total actual is 950. Total of applied is 888. You subtract the smaller total from the bigger total and put the difference at the bottom of the bigger total, that is 62,000. Since applied is less, it is also called under applied overhead. So basically right now our income statement is showing $62,000 less expense. So we will charge additional $62,000. Sorry, it's showing 62,000 more. So we will reduce that expense by 62,000 by closing this account. First of all, do you understand this part, please?
Yes.
Do you know how to close an account? What does closing of an account means? You should know it from 201.
We've got to zero it out.
You balance the zero. So you've got a $62,000 balance in this. So you got a debit balance of 62,000, right? So you credit $62,000 to close the account. Okay. That'll be the closing entry. You credits by 62,000 and charge it to the cost of goods sold. So now where you had charged $888,000 earlier, now you have increased the cost of goods sold by 62,000 to bring it to the actual 950.
If it was an over applied overhead, would it be just vice versa?
Yes. Yeah, if it was at credit balance over applied, it would reverse this entry. Yes.
Thank you.
Any other question on this part, please?
So when we do this kind of problem in the general journal, is it always going to be cost of goods sold that we're crediting or debiting?
If the amount is small, okay, I think for our purpose, that will be fine. Let me see if they've used anything else. No, they used the cost of goods sold. Why I'm saying this is because if the amounts are significant, then you can allocate it to the work in process, ending finished goods inventory, and cost of goods sold, all three, depending upon the what is there in the ending inventory and work in process, ending inventory, etc. So yes, it can be different, but for our purposes, cost of goods sold should do it. So that is when you meet me in 311, that's what I'll tell you at that time. Although I
Okay,
already
got it.
told you
Thanks.
now. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So here is another question. It shows a total debit of 626,000, credit of 766. So we know this is the actual and this is the applied. So applied is more. So it is an over applied by 140,000. To close the account, you debit it by 140,000 and credit cost of goods sold by 140,000. So what is it actually doing? You applied more overheads than needed, but actuals were only 626. So you're bringing it down to, in the income statement, down to 626. So this will force me to show you how it even came to this stage. How did the overheads applied came here, right? You know this part, this is actual debited, you know this part, right? So now I'm going to explain you how did we get the applied overheads into the overhead account. Okay. Everyone with me, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this would be the last thing I'll do for today. What? Oh, come on. So what do you see at this time on your screen?
Cost
Slide.
of flows,
The PowerPoint.
cost of flows.
It says cost flows.
Yes.
Okay, so now when we account for job order costing, you basically follow the how the raw material moves from the how the goods move from the raw material stage to the finished goods stage. So you start with the raw material. It could be direct material or indirect material. We know that the indirect materials are all your overheads, manufacturing overhead in this case. Work in process, job which is being produced or it is in progress. Once it is completed, it moves to the finished goods, which is the completed goods. Once they are sold, it becomes the cost of goods sold. You know this from your Principles 1 class, right? You got raw material, you apply labor and overhead to it, which is your conversion cost. You would have heard of that. And you convert it into finished goods. Once if they are not complete, it's called work in process. If it is completed, they are called finished goods. From the finished good, they move to the cost of goods sold stage. So this is from your 201 part. So this is how it looks like. You've got material, you've got overhead. Can you see this slide with some little bit of cars?
Yes.
So manufacturing cost, as we said, includes the material, labor, and the overhead, right? So as far as the material is concerned, it could be direct material. You accumulate this information or cost in what we call a work in process account because it is not completed yet. So direct material are charged directly to the work in process. So if imagine it's a T account, that means it comes out of here. So raw materials credited and work in process is debited. The indirect material goes to the overhead account. So think about that overhead account that we prepared earlier. This account. So now you are accumulating the cost. So on the debit side of, so you have got the indirect material over here. Same thing with the labor. Your direct labor is directly charged to the work in process. Indirect labor goes to the overhead cost. And from here, this overhead cost is applied to the work in process. So now we have got direct material, direct labor, and overheads together. Once the goods are completed, they move to the finished goods inventory. When they are sold, it moves to the cost of goods sold. So if you understand the logical flow of goods, then making journal entries becomes easier. So if it is moving from, say, finished goods to cost of goods sold, that means cost of goods sold is debited, finished goods is credited. Same here. If it is moving from work in process to finished goods is debited, work in process is credited. Right? So if an asset goes up, it is debited. Expense goes up, it is debited. If loss goes up, it is debited. First of all, does everyone understand the flow of goods, please? Because if you understand it, then this will help you to make journal entries directly instead of memorizing things. So in this case, we know work in process is debited, raw material is credited. Work in process is debited, direct labor is credited. Overhead is debited, indirect material is credited. Same thing with the indirect labor. Everything is together. You apply the overhead to the work in process account, and it moves on. This is a job cost sheet. You can look at it when you read the chapter. You are accumulating the direct material. You are accumulating the direct labor from different time tickets, and then you are applying the overhead. All together, direct material plus direct labor plus estimated overheads gives you the total cost of the job, which you have already done. I was trying to come to the journal entries. So if you're to record the indirect material used, it goes to the factory overhead and raw material inventory is credited, as I told you earlier. Just think about that picture, the first picture that I showed you. And it's just moving in that way. That's about it. It is as simple as that. You can complicate it to whatever extent you want, but it is simple if you follow it. If you try to memorize it, it will drive you nuts. So if there is ever a doubt, just go back to that picture, the first picture I showed you. This one. So overhead costs, work in process is debited, overhead is credited. Just for the indirect material, work in process debited, indirect material credited. So when you require requisition the material for the direct materials, 1800, work in process debited, raw materials inventory credited directly. Same thing for labor, direct labor. So first is material requisition, direct material has been requisitioned. It is being accumulated in work in process, and raw material inventory is credited. Any question on this entry, please? For the direct labor from the labor time tickets, these are the jobs on which this amount of labor has been spent. So work in process debited by 4,200, factory wages payable credited by 4,200. Again, we have now starting to accumulate the material, labor and material. Next, so we have dealt with direct material, we have dealt with direct labor. Now we'll deal with the indirect material. Indirect material, factory overhead debited, raw material inventory credited. Same thing with the indirect labor, factory overhead debited, and factory wages payable credited. Now we have got material, labor, and overheads. Now to record other overhead cost, factory overhead is debited, and all other over accounts from which it is coming is credited. So now you will notice that in the overhead account, your actual costs have been accumulated. And then applied. So this is how it would look like. This is the summary of the cost flow. Your raw material inventory is going directly to the work in process. Same thing with the direct labor, overhead applied, and so work in process will get overhead applied from the overhead account. So it is, this account is credited and overhead work in process account will be debited. Once your applied overhead, direct material, direct labor have been accumulated, it becomes cost of goods manufactured, and then it moves to the finished goods inventory account. When it is sold, it moves to the cost of goods sold account. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop here. And in the next class, I'm going to take up how to show you this income statement. How do you come up with the cost of goods sold? And that will be the next thing that we will do. Okay. Sorry, I have to leave today, but I'll spend more time with you next time.
Thank you.
Have a nice day, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a
Hey,
good.
Have a nice weekend.
Start to do the problems, please. Please start to do the problems and take care. I'll see you on Tuesday.